I have Jack Savage with me here on the Keto Camp podcast from Everyday Dose. Welcome to the show,
Thanks so
brother.
much for having me.
Shout out to our mutual friend, Melissa from The Beauty and the Broth. They actually sponsor our show, and Melissa's been on the show. She connected me with Jack, and I started to learn more about your company, Jack Everyday Dose. For those watching on YouTube, I got a bag right here that I've been using every single day. Putting this into my coffee, which we'll talk about. And I have your awesome cup that you also sent me that says dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Those are four of my favorite things,
Which
dude.
is DOSE, everyday dose.
Exactly. It perfect. It's like brilliant. I told you, your marketing is on point and your branding, your website is terrific. And we'll get into your company and all the cool ingredients in here. But I want to rewind to when you were 5 years old, diagnosed with ADHD. I mean, how common is that nowadays? And you're on Ritalin, other medications, and eventually Adderall. So let's go back there and your journey on how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah, so I was jumping around like off the wall. Parents didn't really know what to do. Talked to the doctors. Doctor said he's got ADHD. Put me on Ritalin at 5, and then that wasn't working. I'd have like weird tics or have trouble sleeping. They put me on another one, Focalin, Concerta. Then eventually they landed on Adderall, and high doses of Adderall. So I was on that for about 20 years from the age of 5
Wow.
to 25 before I went to the doctor. I had high blood pressure. I already had mood swings. I had trouble sleeping. And I just remember thinking to myself, Jack, you're 25 and you have high blood pressure. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the heck? And I quit cold turkey and started drinking a ton of coffee. And coffee just was not cutting it. I would have 1 or 2 hours of energy, then I'd crash. And the energy wasn't even the same as Adderall. Or I would drink too much coffee. And everybody knows when they drink too much coffee, they feel anxious a little bit or they feel jittery. So I knew that I had to change.
Cold turkey. I mean, that's tough. 20 years on Adderall and decide to go cold turkey. And yeah, when I overdo it with coffee, I get sleepy. I get actually tired. It's the opposite effect. So that was your weaning off. Well, you didn't really wean off. You got off of Adderall, started drinking coffee. That didn't do the trick for you. And then you started to come across, I think it was On It, and their supplement that they have with mushrooms, and you started to dig into Reddit forums. So how was that journey? Share that.
Sure. Well, before I want to go back and talk about like going cold turkey, and I would never recommend that to anyone. Like, that was just my journey. But I was taking smaller doses of Adderall. Like, I would try to do like 10 milligrams or 15 milligrams. And at that point, it really didn't do anything. So it was like, okay, what's the point of even taking 10 or 15 milligrams? I'm not really feeling it. It's not really having the same effect. So I just went cold turkey. And how I felt pretty much at 10 milligrams was pretty much the same that I felt without any Adderall. So again, like, that's not a recommendation for anybody else. It's just my own recommendation. It was my own journey.
Yeah, fair point.
And yeah, so I just started doing a lot of research on, I was listening to Joe Rogan super early on in like 2012 when I was still in California. And On It was one of the sponsors at the time. And I tried On It Alpha Brain, and I was like, this actually works really nicely. But at the time, I couldn't afford like $70 per month or whatever it was. And so I started researching all the different compounds or ingredients that were in Alpha Brain and trying each one individually, because you could buy it at a lot cheaper price if you bought each individual ingredient. Like, in total, like, it would cost more, but individually it was less. And I found that like some of the ingredients in that formula worked really well. So I started just basically self-experimenting with different nootropics and psychedelics, and discovered all of this, like this other world that I had no idea growing up on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah. So what were the specific ingredients that were working really well for you back there?
Well, specifically with Alpha Brain, it was Bacopa Moneri. But then I went on Reddit and discovered lion's mane and chaga and L-theanine. And so I started compounding my own formulas in the morning, and that's sort of how I got into all this. And when I was making Everyday Dose, or when I was originally formulating Everyday Dose, Bacopa is just like a really, really intense nootropic in terms of like its flavor. It's very bitter, and it almost tastes like, some other things like MDMA. It just does not have a good taste. That I was like, okay, that's just not going to fly. Like, I would take that on my own. Also unnecessary. And so everyday dose consists of lion's mane, chaga, collagen and L-theanine, and a little bit of cold brew extract for that coffee flavor, so that you still taste that experience of like drinking coffee in the morning. So some people like you, they'll drink it with their coffee. Some people will drink it with a shot of espresso. I just drink it solo with just the everyday dose formula, because I don't like, it's 80% less caffeine than a normal coffee. It still has that coffee experience, but some people just can't not go without their espresso. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I actually want to try it with espresso. I haven't tried that. I'm inspired now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has your everyday dose has 1/3 the amount of caffeine, 30 milligrams per serving. Is that correct?
It really depends. Like, so an average cup of coffee has 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine. A bulletproof coffee has 300 milligrams. It's insane. And so everyday dose has 39 milligrams. So that's about 1/3, 1/5, depending on your math and like
And
what you're comparing it to.
right, and you mentioned caffeine, and caffeine can be an issue for a lot of people. A lot of people, when they drink coffee, whether it's coffee or tea with something that has caffeine in a high amount, 100 milligrams plus, they might get jittery, anxious. They might get stomach upset. And you had reference, we were talking about a study about a specific gene. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So there's the gene variant CYP1A2. And if you have that gene variant, it means that you're very sensitive to caffeine. You metabolize it extremely slow. And so typically, if you have the CYP1A2 gene, you're going to want to really reduce the amount of caffeine that you have. And over half of America, 50% of the people have the CYP1A2 gene. So there's more than 50% of America that's drinking coffee. So a lot of people don't realize that what's making them feel anxious or jittery or having trouble sleeping at night is due to how they're metabolizing caffeine.
Interesting. So 50% of Americans. So what is the American population? I forget. American, United States
300
population.
million, 350.
330 million. So let's say 170 million people. That's a great business model. If you could get what you just said, to 170 million people, and help them realize you might have this gene. This is why you don't feel good with coffee. Here's an alternative. Like, man, that's 170 million people that I could use something that could help them. And it's true. It happens to a lot of people that I know. They're like, coffee just doesn't work for me. I get jittery. They probably have that gene, and this is a great alternative, because although it does have some caffeine, how come having this with all the other ingredients in it won't really necessarily lead to those symptoms that somebody might get from drinking coffee?
Yeah. So one, I think that a lot of people can still drink caffeine, just not as much as they're putting in their body. And two, you can sometimes pair different types of ingredients with each other to have a more synergistic effect. So for us, we're pairing caffeine with L-theanine, which there's a lot of science around, a 2-to-1 ratio. So if you have 2 milligrams of if you have 1 milligram of caffeine, you want 2 milligrams of L-theanine. So we have 39 milligrams. To make the math easy, let's say we have 40 milligrams. You should have 80 milligrams of L-theanine. We're putting 150 milligrams of L-theanine in our product, so that we're 100% sure that if you have a caffeine sensitivity, you're not going to have a sensitivity with everyday dose. And it gives that really incredible energy, but it also gives you that calm focus effect, which is really what you're going for, that laser focus.
That's what I notice when I take it, when I put it with my coffee. Here's a question that the audience is asking, but I practice intermittent fasting. Will this break my fast? And I'll give my input, but you give your input first.
So the first question that I would ask is, what are your goals? And are you looking to completely remove all calories or anything but water? Then I would say this is not like, if you're going to have, so like I'm a big fan of like under 50 calories. And so in that case, everyday dose being 20 calories, you're not going to break the fast, especially if you only use water in an everyday dose.
Yeah, and I would say what you just said, like, look at your goals. If your goal is to keep glucose and insulin low because you're insulin resistant and type 2 diabetic, which a lot of people do intermittent fasting for, then this is not going to jack up your glucose and insulin. So it's completely safe. If you want to maximize your intermittent fast and get all the autophagy and gut healing benefits, then just have water during your fast, and maybe have this with your lunch. Just don't have it too late in the day, because it does have some caffeine. Even though the L-theanine's in there, I still wouldn't recommend having it too late in the day. Would you agree with that?
I would 100% agree with that.
And another thing that I get asked all the time is, does coffee break a fast? And here's what I always tell people: the same thing. What are your goals, etc. But if somebody's looking for more like autophagy, which is that cellular repair from fasting, if glucose goes up, autophagy tends to go down. So some people, when they drink coffee, black coffee, or even bulletproof coffee, there's a glucose response, and their glucose goes up 5 points, 10 points, 15 points. And for them, it's breaking some of the autophagy. So I would want my audience, if that's happening to you and you're testing that, add in some everyday dose either to your coffee or as a replacement. And my hypothesis is that you wouldn't see that glucose spike anymore. Would you think that would be the case as
I
well?
would agree.
Yeah, and test it out. We want to hear if you're testing that out, keto campers.
Nice.
So in your product, you mentioned it has lion's mane. I want you to dive deep into what lion's mane is and what is that doing for our health.
Sure. So to even take a step back even further, so lion's mane has beta glucans. It's an active compound that's in lion's mane. And so beta glucans, it's a type of polysaccharide. A lot of people talk about polysaccharides. There's alpha glucans and beta glucans, and you're looking for beta glucans. A lot of mushroom products that are filled with oats or grain, they'll have a lot of alpha glucans, but not a lot of beta glucans. And beta glucans is a type of soluble fiber that comes from the mushrooms. And the power of the beta glucans is it activates the immune cells and triggers a defense response so that you can basically fight like viral infections and different things like that. So it's really good for your immune system. Lots of studies show that it helps fight cancer cells. And so that's beta glucans. And lion's mane contains beta glucans. Lion's mane is incredible. It actually is there's very few ingredients that can actually cross the blood-brain barrier, and lion's mane is one of those. And even to take a step further, take a step back, lion's mane got its name because of like what it looks like. It looks like the mane of a lion, like a fluffy pom-pom.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so it increases, there's like a lot of incredible active compounds that are in lion's mane that helps increase NGS, which stands for nerve growth factors. And because it can cross the blood-brain barrier, you're really actually giving that nutrients to the brain. And so
Interesting. That's probably why I feel so great mentally when I have lion's mane.
I mean, for me, like it's, as someone who has ADHD, I really find it to help me with focus for sure.
And what about chaga? What does chaga do?
I like to call chaga the antiviral king. There's a lot of immune support, super antiviral. It's actually shown to help stop the spread of HIV and herpes in your body. And obviously I wouldn't recommend this as like a solution to that, but like there's like actual studies that have shown like in the test tube, the chaga and the active compounds in chaga helps stop that spread of HIV and herpes. So it's very antiviral, very anti-inflammatory. It helps the body's inflammatory response. It has been used to help with psoriasis and colitis. And there is, I always get melatonin and melanin mixed up. A lot of melanin in it, so it's really good for your skin. And so, yeah, chaga is actually my favorite mushroom. Lion's mane and chaga are my favorite mushrooms.
I wonder if there's a lot of melanin in it because it gets a lot of sunlight. Do you think that's why?
It's interesting. I'm not sure how much sunlight chaga gets because it grows on trees, and trees with like the branches might cover that direct sunlight. So I'm not really sure. It's actually, chaga is considered a conk, C-O-N-K. It's a type of basically parasite that grows on the tree and lives with sort of like a symbiotic relationship. It doesn't destroy the tree, but it slowly pulls out some of the nutrients. So the tree never really is affected by the chaga, but the chaga is actually really pulling out a lot of the incredible nutrients that makes chaga so powerful, which is why you never want lab grown chaga. And there's a lot of brands out there that if you ever read the label and it says mycelial biomass grown on oats, it's lab grown. And you want to make sure that you're using wild harvested chaga, which is what Everyday Dose is using.
That's a good tip. That's interesting. So chaga is a parasite essentially, and it feeds off of it takes all these nutrients from the tree. And how do you extract these mushrooms? Because I know there's different ways to do it. Like, what's the wrong way to extract these mushrooms that are red flags that companies are doing versus the way you do it?
I think the first red flag is not doing an extraction process because it's actually a more expensive process. And so a lot of brands out there, they might be selling a mushroom product that's pretty cheap. And so you're like, oh, great, I'll go with this product. But they're not doing an extraction process. You want to have a hot water extraction process and an alcohol extraction process. And this is going to really help pull out the beta glucans and all the other active compounds like triterpenes and triterpenoids. And I'm going to totally butcher this other one, but it's like butyric acid, which is in chaga that helps really fight the cancer inflammatory conditions.
Interesting. And where do you harvest your mushrooms? Where do you get them from?
We are the company that we work with that does lab testing and makes sure everything's extremely safe is harvested in Siberia.
Siberia. Okay, cool.
Yes.
And in the product, you also included not just the mushrooms and the L-theanine and coffee, but you also included an amino acid stack. Why did you decide to put that in there?
I think, well, the amino acid stack comes from collagen and also the L-theanine. L-theanine is a type of amino acid. And just for example, collagen is known for like hair, skin, and nails, but a lot of people don't realize that collagen is actually really good for your gut because of the glycine, the proline, and the glutamine. And so I really personally, as someone who really cares about biohacking and optimizing my body, collagen is an incredible thing that I want to put in my body every day. So that's where we get our amino acids from, the grass-fed, grass-finished collagen, which is interesting. You can't call collagen organic because it's a gelatin, and because there's like a gelatin process, it can't be considered certified organic.
Huh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. It's wild. Yeah, collagen is terrific. Like you said, the glycine, the proline, similar to bone broth, right? And to like Melissa's company, the Beauty in the Broth, great for the gut lining. Most people have leaky gut and they got food particles that are going undigested. This is a great way to close that. And a lot of people, especially in keto, carnivore, which is kind of like those who listen and watch, they eat a lot of muscle meat. And when you eat a lot of muscle meat and not enough collagen and organ meat, you get this imbalance in methionine to glycine. And that's not good. It could mess with your methylation. So you want to balance that out to get more glycine, more muscle meat, more collagen. Something like this could help that ratio out a little bit.
Totally.
When was it? So I wanted to rewind for a second because I forgot to ask this question. At what point, because you started to research these compounds, you started to use it, you started to notice a big difference. At what point did you say, I need to turn this into a business? I need to get this out to more people. Like, how did that happen?
I just love making drinks. And a friend of mine came over. He was one of the co-founders of Gravity Blanket. And I made him a mushroom drink at my house. And he's like, dude, this has to be on the shelf. And so that was in October of 2019. And so I started researching the market. And during the pandemic, I started developing the product and the supply chain, the marketing, and finding the factory, finding our warehouses that would ship it across the country. And we launched in January of last year.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Now over 20,000 people are drinking everyday dose a day, which is pretty cool.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
That's a really, really amazing. You launched that during the pandemic, during COVID, and fairly recently, 20,000 people drinking it. I mean, it's working. The website is fantastic, by the way. It's everydaydose.com. And we do have a coupon code that Mr. Savage here gave us for you to get 15% off, which is just Keto Camp. We'll drop a link down below. But I want to talk more about different usages of this product, right? So number one, add it to your coffee, add it to your espresso. Number two, just have it with hot water or like
I actually like it cold. So like
cold.
I like to make it like a cold mushroom coffee. And I also like to have it almost like a flat white where you like add less water. And it's just a small amount and it almost gives it that espresso flavor.
That sounds delicious.
I've made what do they call with the ice cream? And maybe this is not right for the keto group, but I've made like the ice cream with coffee, the affogato. That was fun.
Oh, that sounds great. It's good for a keto flex day, which is a high carb day that we teach. That sounds delicious.
Or a mushroom coffee martini.
Ah, wow. You got to open up a store.
That would be pretty cool. Maybe in Miami.
Miami would be a great spot. You're in New York. New York would be a great spot. LA, Austin. Yeah. But Miami would be a perfect spot for that. Are these mushrooms we're speaking about, lion's mane and chaga, are they the same thing as medicinal mushrooms?
Well, I think a lot of different types of mushrooms are medicinal. Depends on how you're applying them, right? Like a psychedelic mushroom is medicinal for the mind, and so are lion's mane and chaga for your body and your mind. Just like it's the experience of like what happens.
So let's talk about the ones that actually alter your state a little bit, right? The psychedelics. What's the difference between those and what we're talking about here?
So these are non-psychedelic. These are not going to see. You're not going to see the spirits of your ancestors, or you're not
Yeah.
going to like see visions. But it is going to help your mind and your body repair itself and help protect protect your body. And I would say the more like psilocybin mushrooms that contain psilocybin, they're going to make you hallucinate, and they're going to make you trip. You're not going to trip balls with everyday dose.
Yeah. No matter how much you have.
No.
Okay. What's the most you've had?
I sometimes still have like 3 to 4 of them a day, just
Okay.
because I love the taste. And
Yeah.
what's really nice is because it has 80% less caffeine than a normal coffee, you can have 3 or 4 of them in a day, and you're not really giving your body too much caffeine. And you're now getting more collagen, more lion's mane, more chaga. So I would say like 4, just because I also think it's important to limit the amount of caffeine you put in your body.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you done psilocybin mushrooms before?
I love. Yeah, I think it's important that everybody, I think, in fact, I think it should be like a rule that every president of America, before they become president, has to take like a hero dose. So they have to like look at themselves and say, am I doing the right thing?
Why? Why is that? What does that? What does it do to
It
you?
makes you think about the inner workings of your mind. It makes you think, like, why are you doing the things that you're doing? And like makes you put a mirror in front of your face and ask, like, am I acting in integrity for myself and for the people, my community? And it's pretty amazing in that sense. At least that's the
Interesting. So,
experiences that I've had, which was like when I was taking Adderall and I went to the doctor and I said and he told me I had high blood pressure, and I took mushrooms, and like my mind, me and myself, depending on how you want to look at that, basically had this conversation. And it was like, do I really want to live the rest of my life on this medication? And the answer was no.
mm, interesting. So it helps you ask the right questions and self-reflect.
You?
I've
Yeah, have
done
you had psilocybin? And
so. My colleague, Dr. John Laurent, are psilocybin mushrooms even legal? First of all, are they legal
all
right
right, so
now?
I got to tell you this: in New York City right now, it's like the Wild West. If you go to Washington Square Park, the big fountain in like the NYU campus area, there are probably like ten booths that are surrounding the fountain selling weed, and now people are selling magic mushrooms on the street visibly, and there's cops around. It's like they don't even care. So no, they're not legal, but like I don't know what's going on in New York City, but they're selling them openly on the streets.
Are they illegal in every state, or is it different in some states? Do you know?
I think it's like legal, or it's like decriminalized in parts of Oregon and parts of California. I think I'm not too up to date
Interesting.
with like psilocybin and the psychedelic space.
So I've done it, and I think I had a bad batch or an expired batch because I didn't feel anything. And from my friends who have done it, they said that shouldn't be. You should have noticed. And I started low. I started with like a quarter of a teaspoon. Didn't notice anything. Me and my fiance. Then we did the next day, half a teaspoon, nothing. I mean, we built up to like almost a whole tablespoon. And I put it in my coffee, but I didn't notice anything. So I am still curious to know that feeling because I didn't get any of that. I think it was just an old batch.
Well, one thing I would like to for anybody who hasn't tried magic mushrooms or psychedelic mushrooms, it's really important to weigh it out. So like a teaspoon might have different densities of mushrooms inside. So like you may do a teaspoon of this batch and a teaspoon of that batch, and they might have different weights. And you want to be really careful on like how much you put in your body. So if you are going to ever try magic mushrooms, I would say get a scale and make sure it's like a half gram. And you can always add more, but you can never take like you can never have less once you put it in your body. So half gram, and then if you're feeling really good, you can do another half gram, or you can do it in a way where you're microdosing like zero point 0.1, and you can have that in the morning, and you're not going to have a psychoactive experience. You're not going to hallucinate, but it's going to be in your body. And actually the lion's mane and the psilocybin synergistic effect is really amazing, because what we were talking about, lion's mane helps cross the blood-brain barrier. So it's going to help the psilocybin reprogram the brain and create new synapses in the brain, which can help reprogram the brain, which is the idea.
Interesting. Interesting. It's a good tip. Lion's mane. I've experimented in the past with lion's mane before bed. And what I noticed, and I want to hear your thoughts if you've seen this, we were talking about the Aura Ring. It increased my REM sleep. Every time I used it before bed, my REM sleep would be increased. Have you seen the same thing?
I have seen the same thing, and I also believe I read a study that it helps with REM.
Interesting. And REM sleep, for those who don't know, it's a very one of the stages of sleep. It's very important. Rapid eye movement takes short-term memory, processes it for long-term memory. So it's great for mental clarity, memory in general. And you want to get really good REM sleep, really good deep sleep. And when I took it, it increased my REM sleep, I think by 30%, which was
Amazing.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
after 30%, what did it like in terms of the total sleep? What was the REM percentage?
Yeah. So went from like an hour and a half total to like 2 hours. And the percentage, I don't remember, probably like from 20 something percent to 30 something percent
That is an
total.
incredible number.
Yeah. I was happy with it. Right. So what other because you have 20,000 people drinking this now, what other anecdotal evidence or comments or reviews you've seen of people, like what are some other benefits if my keto campers who are listening and watching get this, like what are some other benefits they might experience with this?
So there's three main ones that we've got. I actually did a little study on this or survey.
Like a case study? Oh,
Yeah, and a lot of people reporting laser focus, uh,
awesome.
energy, and then weirdly losing weight. A lot of people actually have reported losing weight, and I think it's because it helps reduce stress, less anxiety,
Mm.
less caffeine. Caffeine can increase cortisol, but you've got the L-theanine to reduce the cortisol. And so I think that is actually helping people lose weight. So we don't really talk about it that much because I don't really want to tell people, oh, this is, I don't want to like spread that message as like this is a weight loss because everybody's weight journey is for themselves. But um, we just did this study and I found a lot of people talking about weight loss. And so now maybe we're going to lean into that more and talk about that.
It makes sense because glucose follows cortisol, right? So if you're gonna spike glucose with caffeine or just be stressed out in general and spike be stressed out with cortisol, glucose will follow. And when you have higher glucose, you're going to store more fat, right? So if you're going to lower cortisol, you lower glucose, you burn more fat. Makes sense to me. That's fascinating. I know you have the morning routine is something that I am very, very, I think it's very important. I always say if you win your morning, you win the day, right? And you have a process in the morning, which is hydrate, meditate, activate, elevate. So talk about that morning routine you do.
Yeah, so the hydrate, wake up in the morning, have a hot glass of water, maybe with a little lemon, or even first step, just getting as much water in your body after 8 hours of sleeping, ideally. And then meditating. And I actually have trouble with meditating. So I'll do breath work. There's an incredible app called Othership. And
Yeah, I've interviewed. Yeah, they're great.
oh, cool. Yeah. So we have a partnership actually
Robbie.
right now. Yeah, Robbie's
Yeah.
awesome. We're going to start a challenge where you're going to do 7 days of everyday dose and 7 days of Othership, and we're going to send recommendations. And it's a good
Cool.
challenge. But I like to do hydrate, breath work, activate. So move your body, do 10 burpees or walk around the block. If you have a dog, maybe take your dog out for a walk, just to really move the body because there's so many people wake up, go to their, especially working from a home, going straight to their computer. And then
Yeah.
elevate, I like to joke because with everyday dose, you're going to elevate. You're going to have the laser focus. You're going to have the energy. You're just going to feel really good. So the elevate is to take your dose.
I love that. What is there a reason why you drink hot water instead of room temperature water?
There was like I heard someone recommend it, and then I was drinking cold water for a while, or just like lukewarm normal water, and then I tried the hot water. I'm like, oh, that feels really good in my body. So I listened to my body and I liked it. Um, Ginger tea is really nice in the morning. I actually like to have something like warm, like ginger tea before I dose. And but yeah, that's the only reason why I heard about it, and then I felt good.
Awesome. And what are some other of your favorite biohacks? I know you have an Aura ring. We were talking about that, but what are some other favorite biohacks of yours?
Cold plunge, 100% cold plunge. love the cold plunge. Yeah. I also,
How long do you go in there for?
I don't have a cold plunge, unfortunately, and I was just in Spain and they had a cold plunge there, so I was going there every day. And the more you do it, the more your body can handle it. But like 2 minutes, a minute and a half in the beginning. I got up to 3 minutes, but apparently you're not supposed to go
Wow.
past 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and if you're just doing it for the first time, even a minute and a half might be too long. So to your point, you build up to it because yeah, it is a stressor to the body, but the body adapts and gets stronger. But like too much time in there could be too much stress for the body to adapt to. So yeah, longer than 3 minutes probably not a good idea. But how do you feel when you get out of that cold plunge?
It really it pretty much just vacuums away all the negative thoughts,
Wow,
self-doubt. You feel accomplished, you feel confident, you feel committed, and it just makes you grateful for your body. That's how I feel every time I do it.
that's awesome. That's awesome. What about cold showers? Do you do that at
So
all?
that's
Does
what I'm
that give
doing
you a
right
similar?
now because I don't have the cold plunge. So
That's what you're doing now. Yeah. Well, here in Miami, the pipes don't get cold enough to you take a cold shower and it's still like not that cold. But in New York, I imagine they do get cold, right?
they do, and especially in the winter.
Yeah, especially in the
It gets
winter. Yeah.
really cold. Yeah. What about the water, like the ocean? How, like, what's the temperature right now in the ocean in Miami?
I was just at the beach yesterday with my fiance. It was warm. I don't know what the temperature was, so let me see. Water temperature, Miami. Let's see. 86 degrees.
You said, what is it?
86 degrees Fahrenheit.
That is
Yeah.
wild. That's super hot. I was gonna say maybe you can use the ocean as your cold plunge, but
Not right
yeah,
now. Maybe in the winter. I mean, it'll get colder, but not necessarily cold. It's not like California, dude, where that water gets cold. But here, it stays warm pretty year round. So in Miami, you probably need to get yourself an ice plunge, a cold plunge, or just get a whole bunch of ice, put it into your bathtub, and add water. That could be another option as well.
I haven't done much research, but you can actually refurbish old fridges or freezers and use those as cold
Ah,
plunges, and you can like retrofit it, just a few changes with like the wiring. But they also recommend anytime you go in, pull out the plug, even though it's not going to do anything, but they recommend pulling it out just in case.
good tip. Yeah,
Huge, it's a huge important
that's interesting.
lifestyle
Yeah.
tip.
If I lived in an apartment, if I lived in a house, I would have myself like a cold plunge, an infrared sauna. I would have all these cool devices. What else do you do in terms of biohacking?
I think that's pretty much it for now, at least. For me, at least, like when you have too many things, you either become neurotic or like you never really give yourself a chance to like just enjoy, or it just becomes too much and it's not manageable. I would like to start doing more gratitude journaling at
Mm,
night and the morning, and yeah, I think if you can do the cold plunges and the breath work and the gratitude and the hydration in the morning and the elevation in the morning, I think those things will really set you off for a great day, great month, great week, great month, great year.
I agree. I was actually just going to ask you if you do gratitude. I believe in gratitude so much. I call it vitamin G,
Oh, I
the
love.
strongest vitamin in the world. It's like incredible. I practice it every morning, every night before bed. So speaking of which, let me ask you the question: like, what are you grateful for right now, Jack?
Honestly, I am so grateful to live a life where I can live in New York in the summer and the fall, and I live in LA in the winter between like December and April. So to be able to have the life where I can go to just chase the warm weather, I'm super grateful for. And I just got to New York about a month ago. So I'm feeling super grateful about that. And also, um, there's a lot of homelessness in New York City, and it makes you really feel really grateful for where I start, like my life and how I got to where I am today.
That's great. Yeah, perspective is always a good thing. That is a blessing to be able to travel back between LA and New York. I'm going to be in New York, by the way, next month. I'm going to be speaking at a keto event in Manhattan, New York City. Love to connect with you. Are you going to be in town at the end of September?
I will be. We should totally host like a little like a keto dinner, founder dinner, podcast.
Let's do it. Yeah, we'll talk outside of it. Yeah, I'll be there 23rd and 22nd to the 25th, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so regarding your product, you have this. This is like, what else do you have on your website? For those who go on there, which is everydaydose.com, and they're looking at your website, what can they find on there? What can they get?
Sure. So we just launched a frother, and you don't need a frother to dissolve the product, but it does elevate the experience. It really whips it up into this like free, creamy, frothy goodness. I think I like to explain it.
Nice.
In about 2 months, we're going to launch a matcha plus, where we're going to have everyday dose with Tenzo tea matcha, and we're going to
Ah,
combine it with our mushrooms and our nootropics and our collagen. So you're going to get this really elevated matcha experience. Um, we've got, this may not be very keto, but we've got functional honeys coming out. So we got a
mm,
chai based honey, a turmeric based honey, and original honey. And we're going to put live probiotics in it. And the probiotics is a strain that is heat resistant, so that when you pour hot water on it, it's not going to kill the probiotics.
interesting. That's super cool. Do you plan on getting your products into stores, or do you want to keep it solely to your website?
Right now, we're just growing so fast online that we're focusing on that. But we are, in the next year or so, going to think about how we want to expand. We're also starting to expand into corporate offices. So people that have a lot of employees, they want to make sure that they've got the best coffee in their body. So they're starting to stock their offices with everyday dose, and that's pretty cool.
That is really cool. That's exciting, man. I'm excited for you. I'm so glad it's growing so
Thank you.
fast, especially a company that makes a good product that actually helps people versus like Coca-Cola and all these other companies. Yeah, I'm calling them out. This is so much better than that. And I want the audience to give it a try. Like, get yourself a bag. Do you have anything that people could take to go? Like anything, like any to go things?
Yeah, we just launched our individual servings, and so you have
Oh,
like
cool.
little mini versions of those. And
Yeah.
and when you buy our starter kit, it actually comes with one, so you can try it out and take it on the go. And then on our website, we also sell the individual packets that we just a couple of days we launched with the individual packets, but actually the individual packets for sale are only for customers. So like once you're like a subscriber, on the back end, you can upgrade to individual packets, and we're just trying to create a more sort of dose family feel, so you get access to things that other people don't get when you're a part of the program.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that's great that you have that to go packet or single serving packet. Take it with you when you travel because when I'm traveling, it's hard to find good coffee. I don't want to go to Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and get coffee that's loaded with pesticides and herbicides. Most people don't get that. You get it, Jack, but most people don't understand. Coffee is one of the most commonly sprayed crops in the world up there with corn and soy. And when if you're going to these commercial chains and you think just because they have these fancy latte names, it's not going to be healthy for you. It's actually going to cause more gut issues and more inflammation in your body. So when I travel, it's so good to have something like this option on the road. So take it with you when you travel. If you go to everydaydose.com, you can learn more about it and all the products that you have and use Keto Camp at checkout. Where else do you want to check you out? Anything on social media?
Yeah, check us out on Everyday Dose on our Instagram. Give us a little like, follow. Um, we're always offering like cool tips online, and we actually have a free program as well right now. It's a free week if you go to the website. You just pay $5 for shipping, and we'll send you a free week of Everyday Dose.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. Okay. Take advantage of that. We'll put your social media down below, including your website and the coupon code that you gave us. Jack, thanks for creating this product, man. I appreciate all the hard work, and I'm excited to see all the new products get launched and crush it and take over the world with your amazing product and the everyday dose, man. Grateful for you. Grateful for Melissa. I look forward to hanging out in New York City, and thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I feel like I'm absorbing so much vitamin G right now by being on
That's
the
right.
show. So appreciate it.
You can't overdose on vitamin G. Get all you can get. Thanks, Jack.